Advisors, and this Excelsis Advisors LLP is the brainchild of visionary educationists Mr. Rohan Bhatt and Mr. Rohit Bhatt. Founded with a mission of providing in-depth academic and intellectual support to institutions committed to delivering quality education, EAL brings together a team of passionate experts dedicated to empowering schools and transforming the educational landscape. With decades of leadership experience in successful institutions, EAL offers comprehensive, customized consulting services tailored to evolving needs of each school it partners with. At the heart of Excelsis Advisors LLP, at the heart of their work is the commitment to meaningful learning by way of engaging lesson plans and reflective practices. And these are the ones which lead to academic excellence. Today we have among us the very distinguished educator, Ms. Reena Shikharkane, an experienced English language and literature educator. She has a postgraduate degree in English literature from Mumbai University and a bachelor's degree in education. Ms. Reena is known for amalgamating strong curricular understanding with thoughtful learner-centered pedagogy. With a strong command of grammar pedagogy, Ms. Reena has designed interactive grammar lessons where complex grammatical structures are broken down into student-friendly explanations and very simple scaffolded practices. Over the years, she has developed a distinctive training style that blends clarity, structure, and creativity. Her professional development sessions for educators reflect her belief that language learning must be both systematic and imaginative, grounded in structure, yet open to student expression. For her, teaching English is both an art and a responsibility. Guided by her keen interest in the evolution of language, she strives to nurture confident communicators, thoughtful readers, and most important, independent thinkers. And how does she do it? She's going to throw light on the entire gamut of experiences that she provides to her students and which you can provide as an English language educator to your students. So over to you, Ms. Reena. The stage is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Sheila, ma'am. At the onset, I would want to thank Excelsis Advisors and USA for providing us this opportunity. I'm not saying providing me this opportunity, providing us this platform for the educators to come together, to interact with one another, to learn, and finally, who is going to benefit out of it is the learners. And we are all, as teachers, at the heart of it, when we step into the classroom, we only want the learners to be benefited from our classroom interaction. So thank you once again. And without much ado, let us begin with today's session. So as you can see on the screen, today's session is about from monologue to dialogue, transforming language classroom interactions, right? I know it is 2 o'clock. Most of you have your leisurely time right now, right? But what are we going to gain out of this particular session? So the learning objectives for this particular session, at the end of it, teachers will be able to implement strategies that promote collaborative learning in English language and literature classroom. So as we can see, our topic is from monologue to dialogue. So if we want to have students conversing, we need to have collaborative learning happening in the classroom. And we are going to discuss a few strategies for the same. If we create collaborative learning, if we create strategies that promote collaborative learning, we are automatically creating student-centric, communication-rich interactions in the classroom. So that is also what is going to happen at the end of this session. We're also going to reflect on the challenges encountered while applying collaborative strategies. So yes, again, 2 o'clock, and we are probably forced to enter this room, enter this meeting, and we are still in the holiday mode, Saturday, Sunday. And constant thought is, oh, whatever collaborative strategies that we apply, right? There are so many challenges. So yes, we are aware of the challenges and we are going to reflect on those challenges. And if we reflect on those challenges, we together are going to identify solutions to overcome these challenges, right? And if we do all these things, then we are trying at the end of this session, we are trying to shift our mindset from teacher led explanations to student driven discussions. So, this is what is going to happen at the end of this particular session, right? Uh, Before we begin, right, just a warm up activity that you can use the chat prompt to tell me how. With reference to the learning culture, how would you describe an ideal classroom? Right. So take a minute. Tell me in the chat box how would this classroom be? Remember, ideal classroom not in terms of lighting and seating arrangement, the teaching learning process, the learning culture. Okay. Interactive, collaborative and engaging. Yes. Students are asking queries. Yes. Child centric. All right. Children can fearlessly express good rapport with the students. Correct. All right. Student participation. Yes. All right. So fair enough. We all understand that what we want in a classroom is student participation, right? But, and yes, it is an interactive classroom. Eye to eye communication. That's interesting. Yes. Okay. So, yes, we all understand that it has to be where students are the center, the students participate. However, we all cross our hearts and tell the truth that majority of the time our classrooms are dominated by teacher monologue, right? They are dominated. We want a classroom where students are quite active. We want a classroom where students are encouraged to speak, but majority of the time our classrooms are dominated by teacher monologue. So how are the classrooms that are dominated by teacher monologue? If you can just write that in the chat box right now. How are the classrooms that are dominated by teacher monologue? Lecture delivery, all right. Chalk and talk, one-way communication, only explanation, no questions allowed. To have control in order to finish the syllabus, all right. Control, that's the word. Does not allow students to express their thoughts. Not receptive to others' viewpoints. Control is something that we are getting. All right. Lecture, no dialogue, correct, correct, absolutely. So if we want to sum up how a classroom dominated by teacher monologue is, as you all said, teacher does almost all the talking. Teacher delivers information and students listen or take notes, right? And experience tells us that students do not listen, right? We deliver information, yes, from the bottom of our hearts. We want to give everything that we know to the class, but students only hear, they do not listen. No comprehending is happening there. No comprehension is taking place. They take notes, they are expected to take notes, but we know they do not. They are very passive in the classroom. Students only respond when directly asked. So it's not that they do not respond, but yes, when asked, they do respond. And the responses are usually short, factual answers. Limited thinking and expression. This is what we got in the chat also, that there's hardly any expression. They don't think much because we are giving them most of the information. Students are in constant fear of being wrong because there are short answers, factual answers. If they do not know that answer, that constant fear of being wrong, being ridiculed, not by the teacher probably, but by their friends, is something that they constantly fear. Classroom atmosphere is orderly, definitely, because except for the teacher, nobody is speaking, but it lacks energy, curiosity, or collaboration. And learning feels like receiving information rather than constructing meaning, right? So, our goal for this session is to disrupt this pattern. So, we do not want a classroom which is dominated by only teacher talk. We want, as you all said, the ideal classroom is where students feel comfortable in speaking, students want to share their ideas, students collaborate with one another. So that is what we are going to look at today's session. So our goal is to disrupt this pattern of teacher talk in the classroom. If we want to disrupt, right, what is the change that we want in the classroom? Right, the change that we want in the classroom we have already discussed. We want a classroom where learning flows through conversation, questioning, shared meaning making. Right, learning flows through conversation, questioning, very important, shared meaning making. So we are not giving the meanings to the teacher, to the students. Right, students are creating the meaning out of the. Students are active participants who shape the direction of the lesson with their ideas, interpretations, and questions. Right? What is important over here is who shape the direction of the lesson. So, as and when their ideas, the moment they bounce off their ideas, the lesson is directed accordingly. Right? And of course, teacher is there to get them back if they go off tangent. Ideas are built collaboratively, shared meaning making. Thinking is made visible. What they think, why have they come to this idea, why have they come to this meaning, what is their thought process, that is made visible and very evident in the classroom. And teacher becomes a facilitator and not a knowledge broadcaster. Right? So no teacher talk, we are merely facilitating in the classroom. Okay, now coming to today's topic, from monologue to dialogue. Why move from monologue to dialogue in the first place? Of course, we have seen that we want more of student interaction and all those things. Yes, definitely. The main objective of every language lesson is to develop the four core language skills, which is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And we know if the teacher is going to do most of the talking in the class, these four core language skills are not going to take, right? The students are not going to develop these four language skills. And the NEP, the National Education Policy, has also emphasized a shift from content heavy learning to competency based education. So we want to develop these skills and these competencies amongst our learners. Why? That is why we have the move from teacher talk to the collaborative classrooms. And we do not want, the purpose of a language lesson is not that the child learns something by rote and writes in the paper. Right? We want children who are prepared for real life scenarios. They think critically, and their holistic development is done in that classroom. So that is why that shift. People will say, oh, traditionally we have been teaching like this, itne saal se we are teaching, what is the need to shift from this to this? These are the reasons, right? To develop the core skill. National education policy is changing from content heavy learning to competency based education. So definitely we will have to change our stance from the teacher driven education or learning to student centric learning. Okay. So now let's delve into the topic, collaborative classroom. But before we come to what the strategies are for a collaborative classroom, there are certain things that are required, a prerequisite for a collaborative classroom. First, the non-negotiable part, a well-prepared teacher. Right? We just cannot enter the classroom and decide at that moment of time that today I'm going to do a collaborative task. No, it requires a lot of preparation before, during, and even after. Right? So that is a non-negotiable part, a well-prepared teacher. And we are going to look at this throughout our session. Next is, of course, we need to have students groups. So we need to form students groups. This has to be done one time so that throughout the year, whenever you have the task, collaborative task, you are aware that students will in this group would be doing the task, right? So how do we form students groups generally? I'm not taking it in the chat box. I will run through. Generally, what we do is roll numbers 1 to 5 get together. Or if we want to just innovate, we'll ask the students to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, again 1, 2, 3, 4, then all the ones, twos get together, right? Or 1, 11, 21, 31 get together. So a group of 4 students in this manner, right? But here are some ways to form students groups, right? Just a few tips to just form students groups before we look at the strategies. One is meeting clock. Second is sociogram, right? So let's look at the first one, meeting clock, right? So this is a typical meeting clock of a student. This is what it would look like. So if I am a student, I would have a 3 o'clock meeting with Mahek. I would have an 8 o'clock meeting with Asif and an 11 o'clock meeting with Fiona, right? What exactly does it mean? What is the procedure for the same? Right? So let's look at the procedure. The first step is students draw a clock with 12, 3, 6, 9 on it, right? Fairly simple, just 12, 3, 6, 9. When the teacher wants to form a group, probably right at the beginning of the year, right? She will devote one lecture and she will ask the students to stand up and start scheduling meetings. So students would go to other students and they would find a partner for each time. So if you want to do an activity in pair, they will find only one partner, right? But you know there would be some activities where you require at least 4 students in one group. So as a teacher, your instruction would be that you would find 3 students for 3 o'clock meeting, 6 o'clock meeting, 9 o'clock meeting, and 12 o'clock meeting. So you be ready at the beginning of the year. You be ready with a pair, or you be ready with 4 students, right? 4 students in one group. The teacher asks the students then, whenever we want to have that activity, that collaborative task, the teacher asks the students to find, say, their 12 o'clock part. And then she will pose them with a question or a, right? So if a child, if you want them to work in pair, the teacher will ask them to pick up any one child and they will start discussing with them, right? But if you want, again, 4 students, then all the 12 o'clock, if I am the student and I have chosen 3 students who I have scheduled the meeting with for 12 o'clock, all 4 of us will get together. And then whatever task the teacher is asking us to do, we will do the task. We will complete that task, right? After the meeting, right? After the meeting, as in after the task is done, the students definitely can come and share whatever they have discussed, whatever the question was, whatever the task was, right? And very importantly, the teacher can repeat the same for other meetings as in other tasks, right? So what will happen is if you have done this right at the beginning of the year, let's say this week I have asked the students to schedule their meeting or to do the task with the children that they have scheduled the meeting at 3 o'clock. Next week, when I have to do the same task, I will ask them to the 9 o'clock students to get together and they will start doing the task. So it's not the same student who they are working with, right? They are working with different students. Another very important thing is this can be done for a class where the teacher is not very sure about the class dynamic, right? So let's say I'm a new teacher to the class. So I am not very aware of who the children are, how do they gel along with one another. So I will give this as the starting point for forming groups rather than just calling out the roll numbers, right? And very importantly, I come back to that well-prepared teacher. While the students are doing this, I am not just going to stand aside. I'm going to keep observing. that, okay, the first thing that this child did was rush to her friend and she set up a meeting. But then you have 12, 3, 6, 9. So you have to have the meetings with 12, 3, 6, 9, 4 students. So then who is the child who's probably left behind? Who is the most popular student in the class? The teacher is keeping a tab on all these things. She's observing and she's making a note of all these things, right? And if you have any students in the class who are not so popular, nobody wants to work with them, as a teacher, we will have to step in. Remember, we are well prepared teachers. So we have to step in. We have to assign that student to one of the groups, right? So that is about meeting flow. Remember, this is not a strategy. This is a way to form a group in order to do our collaborative tasks later on in the classroom. I move to the next one. Now that I know the class a little bit, I know the class dynamics. I'm going to come to the next one, that is sociogram. Right? So what is a sociogram? This is what it will look like in my book, where I have noted down certain things. So if you look at, there are two arrows, two colored arrows, green and blue. So let me take J and Meet. So if you look at J and Meet, there is a green color arrow there. Green color arrow has, it is a two-sided arrow. That means J and Meet both are comfortable working with one another. That's not an issue at all. But look at Jay and Amaya. Jay is comfortable working with Amaya, but Amaya is not really comfortable with working with Jay, right? Jay and Kyra. Kyra is comfortable working with Jay, but Jay is not really comfortable working with Kyra, right? If you look at Jia and Niyati, there's no arrow there. So class rivalry, we are all aware. Children have this, she was the monitor last year, she did this to me. So class rivalry and all these things, these two girls do not get along well with one another. And therefore, they would be the last ones to be grouped in if given a choice in the same group. So teacher has created this social plan. So whenever we are conducting an activity where we have a scope of, changing perspectives, where we have a scope of getting the students to understand that it is essential that we get along well. Everyone need not be our friend, but we should get along well with one another. Probably the teacher wants to club Gia and Niyati in the same group. But where we feel that no, this activity requires a lot of collaboration and we require students who gel with one another so that the activity is successful, we might want Gia and Meet or Gia and Arush and so on. So these are just two ways of forming your groups: meeting clock and sociogram. All right, so far so good. So what we have done is we have created our groups based on these two techniques, and another prerequisite is a well-prepared teacher. So now let us come to the strategies for collaborative classroom. We begin with our first strategy, gallery walk, right? The word gallery walk and the picture, right? What do we do when we go to an art gallery? We just walk around, we observe the paintings, right? We make a mental note of the things about the painting, the color combination, or probably how bright the smile is on Mona Lisa's face, or it's not bright, right? We walk around and we keep making a mental note. This is what we want to translate into our classroom, right? So how do we do that? Again, the procedure, the steps. So teacher prepares short posters or questions related to a particular topic, right? Then she puts these posters and these questions on the walls of the classroom. If you feel the classroom will be too congested when 40 children are moving around, you may want to put it in the corridor. The advantage of doing this would be that it would remain in the corridor and every division will be able to access it. So if you're teaching a topic and you have 4 divisions in the school, right? Every division will have this gallery walk strategy. So you need not, every teacher need not do it, print the papers or put the posters separately. This would be an advantage, right? If you feel even the corridor is not accessible, there are too many children, right? then you may want to take them to the hall and conduct this activity. And once in a while, when you take the students to the hall, they also feel they feel that monotony is broken, and they feel that they're doing something new, right? They're not doing anything new, they are studying, they are learning in a different manner. Step 3, students walk through the room or corridor with a pen and a paper, and they note down their responses, observations, or comments. Right? We discuss in an art gallery, we make a mental note. Here, we want the students to roam around with a pen and a paper, have a look at each poster, right? Note down if there are questions, they will note down their responses, right? If there are certain things about the picture that you have put up, probably, or a stanza that you have put up, they will write their observations and comments, right? Essential, they need to write, because it's not possible for a child to see, say, 5 posters and come back to the class. They need to write. Step 4, after the work is done, the students discuss their responses, right? So they come back to the class, and the teacher will facilitate this discussion by asking relevant questions. So whatever their observations are, or whatever their responses are, whatever their comments are, they will get turns to speak about the same. The teacher will facilitate the discussion. So this is what gallery walk is all about. So preparing the posters, putting them on the walls, students are allowed. Now again, when students are allowed to walk through the room, do not think that it would be a chaos. Well prepared teacher, the non negotiable prerequisite, right? You will have to constantly time the children, that one group, please move to the next question. So after a minute or so, or after 2 minutes, depending on what you have put up on the posters, right? You will have to guide them. You will have to constantly be there involved, and that is how the entire gallery walk will take place. And once they come back, of course, we will have the discussion. Majority of the discussion will be students who will be discussing their responses. As teachers, we will be only facilitating by asking proper relevant questions. Right? So here are some examples. In literature, Bangle Sellers is a poem, famous poem by Sarojini Naidu. So I've taken the first stanza. So what I would do is I will take all the stanzas and prepare some questions on the poem. Right now, there are sometimes we find that some poems are so easy that you really do not want to give an explanation for the poem. These pieces will definitely be a good examples for gallery walk, right? Sometimes you have certain poems like this Bangle Singers, where you have direct questions, and you have a lot of discussion that will happen on something that is not really direct over here, right? So what do we do is all the direct questions, we will pose them in the form of a gallery walk. We will finish off that discussion very quickly and come to the questions that are thought provoking. So in a gallery walk, we can have questions that are direct, sorry, mix of questions that are direct and questions that are thought provoking. So if you look at this first stanza of Bangle sellers are we who bear our shining loads to the temple fair, who will buy these delicate, bright, rainbow tinted circles of light, lustrous tokens of radiant lives for happy daughters and happy wives. So look at the kind of questions. Who is speaking in this stanza? What are they carrying? These are very direct questions. So who is speaking? Bangle sellers are we. So bangle sellers. What are they carrying? They are carrying loads, right? How have they described the bangles? How have the bangle sellers described the bangles? Rainbow tinted circles of light, lustrous tokens of radiant lives, right? Who are the bangles for? Last line, happy daughters, happy wives. So these are all direct questions. Once you deal with these questions, you can then go to the thought provoking questions, but the thought provoking questions are there on the poster, so that the child is forced to think individually first. Why do you think they are heading to the temple fair? But there's no answer to this in the entire poem, right? So the children have to think. So why do you think they are heading to the temple fair? A fair, so obviously too many ladies at the temple, and the business will boom. So they are going to the temple fair, right? So a mix of thought-provoking questions and direct questions. If you take in language as an example, in language, here I have taken subject verb agreement, the topic subject verb agreement. Now, why I have chosen this topic is this topic, if you look at, again, has set rules. So once you know the rule, you know that you are not generally going to go wrong, right? So example, I have taken one rule over here. When two subjects are joined by the following words, the verb agrees with the second subject. Following words, which words? Either or, neither nor, not only but also, right? So I have sentences of either or, not only but also, and neither nor in the as the example here. So as a student, when I go and watch this, I will first read the rule. When two subjects are joined by the following words, either or, neither nor, not only but also, the verb agrees with the second subject. Now, in the examples, I have underlined the second subject there. And if you look at the sentences, the subjects have changed their position. So, with the change in position, the verb is also changing because in these sentences, the verb agrees with the second subject in number and person. So, the students have automatically probably understood, right? And whether they have understood or not, let's have a look at what happens. So, this is a gallery walk that was conducted in the classroom. We have students. So here I could conduct it in the classroom, within the classroom itself. So the posters or the rules are placed on the walls and students are copying them. And once they were done with this, we came to the sentences. Again, right and wrong sentences, both given together. And the children were able to identify. So, for example, the seventh sentence here is either the students or the teacher. So they were able to identify. If you look at this particular part, it is rule number 7. So they were able to identify that, okay, this is rule number 7. Then what does the rule say? Okay, then what could be the correct answer? So the learning was happening on their own. We did not teach them anything. They grasped the rules on their own. Right? So similarly, when you put up all the rules, they will be able to give you wherever they are not able to, we are always there to help them. So this was gallery walk. So we have the next strategy, that is question commander, right? Question commander, the meaning commander, that means we need to have one leader, right? What is the leader doing? Questioning, question commander, right? So how does this strategy go? Step 1, again, prerequisite. Teacher has to create a set of questions about a topic, right? Then students work in groups of 3 or 4. Now remember, group, either the meeting clock or the sociogram. So the groups are ready with you. All you need to do is, you need to just tell them, all right, meeting clock, 3 o'clock schedule, please get together. And then they will get together, right? So they work in the groups of 3 or 4. The question commander reads the question. Commander, right? Leader. So the question that are given, the question commander will read the question. The question commander will decide. He will pick one child from the group. He will tell the member to answer the question. Nobody else will speak. Nobody else will speak. Only that particular child will speak, right? The other group members, after that child has spoken, they can then add on to how to answer the question differently. So if the answer is correct, they would simply say, all right, the answer is correct. If it is not correct, then they would want to add it to the answer, or they would want to say that, no, this is completely incorrect. This should be the answer, right? The question commander then decides the best answer to this question, right? And then the teacher takes it up. Right? The teacher will then have the discussion of the same questions in the entire with the entire class. Right? Now, we all want the students to speak. We all want the students to listen. Remember LSRW, right? We all want the students to read. So the question commander can keep changing. It is not necessary that whoever is the question commander right at the beginning continues to be the question commander towards the end, right? If there are 4 students, every student will get a turn to be question commander. Automatically, what will happen is all the other 3 children will get an opportunity to answer. So while this is going on, the teacher will also come to know who can lead, who can speak well, who can think and process well. Thinking becomes visible, remember? Who can think and process well, who is able to articulate the answers well, right? So this is an example of the language in question commander. So this is typically the framework of the reading comprehension for ICSE grade 10. Right? You have 4 questions, out of which 1 and 2 are based on vocabulary. The third question, you have small 2 mark, 1 mark answer, and the fourth question is a précis. Right? So when you are starting with reading comprehension, right? Let's say 4 students are seated in the group. So you will ask one student who will become the question commander to only read the entire passage, right? So reading is happening, listening is happening, right? Switch roles. So teacher is there to guide. Now, okay, stop. All those who have completed the reading, stop. The question commander changes. So the next person would probably want to take only the vocabulary section, or the teacher guides them to take only the vocabulary section. So that person will now ask the other 3 students to answer, or one student, and the other 2 will then add on whether it is correct or it is not correct. Right? When you come to question 3, again the commander is changing. Let's say the third student reads only question A, and the remaining 3 answer, or one of them answer, and they come to a common consensus. Okay, this is the answer. Right? Fourth student reads question C. Next, question D. And then the précis, probably all 4 of them can do together. Right? So the roles keep changing. And as we said, LSRW is also happening over here. Right? In literature, again, you can do it very simply for your question answers. So I've taken the same example, Bangle Sellers, right? Another stanza. There are 3 questions. So there would be 3 question commanders, and the 3 students, separate students, would get an opportunity to speak. Right? So one question commander would only read, and he would appoint another one to give the answer to the first question. Next, the second student and the students who would answer would also go on changing, right? So that the teacher understands whether the students have understood the poem. That she will constantly be around monitoring, and she will keep noting in her book. The students have understood. Some students need more scaffolding, right? We'll come to that a little later also. So this is how your typical school, the setup, the class setup, not the school setup, the class setup would look like when you're conducting this activity. So if you look at, there are different groups who are doing the same task, and teacher will keep monitoring all of them, right? I want you to have a look at this particular video.
Preceding.
So you see what happens? The question commander is asking one student, is making that student responsible for answering, and nobody else is answering. If you look at this again, nobody is answering, and this girl here is in fact asking her, all right, tell what is the answer, right? And the question commander is also not speaking. The question commander hands over the pencil to her, that please write down the correct answer.
Preceding.
So that's how the question commander will appoint students, and every student will get to answer. The other students will wait for their turns to answer. Right? That was question commander. So we have done gallery walk, and we have done question commander. Right? Next strategy, fishbowl. Thank you. Next strategy is fishbowl. Right? You can see what is happening over here. There are some students inside the fishbowl, and there are some students outside the fishbowl. So this is what a typical fishbowl setting. Thank you. This is what a typical fishbowl setting is. right? You have groups of students inside the fishbowl and you have groups of students outside the fishbowl. And if you look at group B, they are observers, right? So students inside the fishbowl, they will actively discuss a topic, and students outside the fishbowl listen carefully to the conversation. So they are the observers, right? If you do not have space for this kind of a setup, you can just vary. You can have according to your class, you can have a few students seated in the center and the others outside, right? You can just, according to the classroom, you can change the setting. It's not a compulsion to have this kind of a setting. We also tried this in the school, and we realized that in the classroom it became quite congested, so we asked the students to step out in the corridor also, right? So if you have the setup where the other class is not getting distracted, you can do that also, right? Again, breaking the monotony. The steps again. So teacher poses a topic or asks an open-ended question to direct the discussion. This is very important. Imagine there are 5 children sitting inside and you ask them, where is the scene set? Right? All 5 will have one answer and there will be no discussion happening. So open-ended question is something that we have to keep in mind. Students inside the fishbowl actively discuss the topic and question posed as we discussed earlier. Step 2, the second part of the step 2, or not the second part, simultaneously, what is happening is students outside the fishbowl, they are listening, they are reflecting, and they are taking notes. All right. So that is why don't get confused why step 2 and step 2. Step 2 is happening simultaneously. Inside one group is talking, outside one group is listening. Right. Once the students inside the fishbowl, they complete their discussion, they switch positions. Students, the observers, discuss the topic, and very importantly, now they have an advantage that they have their notes ready because they have been listening to what the students inside the fishbowl were doing or talking, right? And simultaneously, now the students who are inside the fishbowl, they are observers, so they are also listening and taking notes. And of course, while this is happening, the well prepared teacher, she is also making note of all these things, the points that have been said by both the groups, and then she summarizes the discussion. Right? This is how a fish bowl discussion would take place. In literature, you can take open-ended questions. Right? Is Shylock a victim or a villain? The Merchant of Venice text. So some students would say, no, 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 Shylock is definitely a victim. He was ill-treated by Antonio, right? He did not deserve the kind of treatment that was given out to him. But then some students would say, no, he's definitely a villain. Because in spite of whatever has happened to him, when he got an opportunity, he also behaved in the same manner. He wanted to take the pound of flesh from Antonio's body. When offered enough money, he did not take because he wanted to kill Antonio. So he's definitely not a victim. He is a villain, right? Again, for all those people who feel that such kind of questions will never be asked in the exam, agree. Let's go back to LSRW, right? LSRW is what we are looking at over here. We are not, we do not want students to merely learn the questions. We want them to think, right? And prepare. The critical thinking happens and we are preparing them for real life scenarios also, right? In language, of course, we can have a debate or an argumentative essay. And the example that I have given over here is 4 days school week should be implemented. And when I did this in the class, everyone was like, oh, yes, 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 yes. And then when I probed further and asked them to just sit with this particular topic and see really, do you feel that this should be implemented? That's when they started thinking. And this is how it went on in the classroom.
Students' life, studies is a most important part, and meeting friends every day also teach them many things. So school is very school.
So again, look at the setting. It's not a typical circular setting, all right? Depending on the classroom, one thing. If you looked at the other students, they were making notes, all right? And on the right-hand side, you find that particular student who was making note. He is going to now answer. Right?
And said that they do not support the statement that schools should not implement a 4-day week, but we favor the statement that schools should implement a 4-day week, as it has a lot of advantages, as it would increase the sleep hours of the students, as they will not have to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, while also they would get more time to spend it with their family, more time for hobbies, more time to learn other skills, such as AI, usage of AI, they would get more time to explore and travel, and we all know that traveling is the best teacher.
If I may interrupt you, can somebody else speak? Because it's not just one person, right? You all felt. Yes.
So it is.
So again, coming to that well-prepared teacher, right? Many a times when we do these collaborative activities, we realize that there are some students who hijack the conversation completely. Now, there are 5, 6 students in the fishbowl, but only one person spoke so many points. In fact, when they started the discussion, they all had written down the points and then they said, okay, you speak. Right? But as a vigilant teacher, as a facilitator in the classroom, we have to constantly keep a tab that not one person will be doing the task. Right? We have to ensure that all the students are involved, or a majority of the students are involved. Right? Now, if you look at the class strength and if you look at the number of people who have spoken, right? You'll question me, oh, there are only 11 children who have spoken so far. What about the others? Right? If you are proficient enough to handle such kind of a situation, you may want to have 3 fishbowl groups, right? Again, this could be done in the hall. Another advantage is if you have the teachers from other divisions, they can help you out conduct this activity for your division, and you can help them out and carry the activity in their division, right? Having said that, it is not necessary that every collaborative task that I do in the classroom, it should cater to every student in the class. No. So, for example, if I have given opportunity to these students to speak today for fishbowl discussion, probably next month when I'm doing another task, or next week when I'm doing another task, I will ensure that these students get minimum opportunity. These students get minimum opportunity to speak, right? Because they've already spoken in an earlier task. They have already been active participants in the earlier task. So that is where that well-prepared teacher comes into picture, right? We need to be prepared. We just cannot enter the classroom and say that, okay, today I'm going to do that collaborative task, right? The next strategy, we come to the next strategy, that is hot seat, right? Hot seat, KBC. What is the hot seat and why is it called the hot seat? We'll soon see. A student is asked to be on the hot seat as one of the characters of a story, novel, or play, right? So it's only one student on that particular seat, and he is going to bear the heat of all the questions that come his or her way. So, hot seat. Other students ask questions to that character, right? The character who is on the hot seat. The student on the hot seat answers the questions. But how? How is the student answering? Not as his or her own self. The character answers in that particular role, right? That is very important. Step 4, the teacher moderates the kinds of questions asked and responses given, right? We do not want a heated argument there. We do not want that entire discussion to go haywire. So that moderation is always going to happen on our part. And then, of course, the teacher summarizes the discussion, right? Hot seat. If you feel, okay, let's look at the example. Merchant of Venice, character on the hot seat is Shylock, right? What could be the questions that other students might ask Shylock, right? Why did you lend the money to Antonio? If you did not like Antonio, why did you lend him the money in the first place, right? Remember, Shylock insists on that pound of Antonio's flesh. So students might ask him, "What would you have done with that pound of flesh?" Though he says that I would use it as a bait, right? That's definitely not what he's going to do. But what would he do there? Why did you not take thrice the amount that was offered to you? Again, I go back to the fact that we are not looking at merely the answers that would be asked in the examination. We are looking at developing the competencies, we are looking at developing their skills. And as we have discussed earlier also, that NEP is now focusing on competency-based questions. Now we have the higher order thinking questions in the question paper. When you do such kind of activities, the children get that experience to answer those kind of questions in the classroom itself. So even if they are not able to speak, they will get that experience and they'll be in a better position to write those answers when they are asked in the examination hall, right? Second, in the language, hot seat example for language is active passive voice, and the character on the hot seat is passive voice sentence, right? So you might have a bib on the child with one passive voice sentence like the tiger was shot by the hunter, right? And that indicates that he is a passive voice sentence. And what could be the questions that students might ask them? What is the difference between you and your sibling active voice? So the student who is sitting on the hot seat, you realize teachers now here, you cannot have a student who cannot contribute, who is not very well versed with the concept or not very intelligent enough, if I may use that word. It's a wrong word to use, but generally an above average child would be in the hot seat. A below average child would not be able to answer the question, and we do not want to intimidate the students in the classroom. We do not want them to be in a situation where they will never be able to speak in the classroom ever again. So for this activity, we will have to keep that in mind. So again, a well prepared teacher, right? For the fishbowl, you may have a group where you have below average, average, and above average students, right? Because ultimately it's the group that is speaking. Here, there is only one character who is speaking. The character should have in-depth knowledge of what he or she has become, and therefore you require the above average students. So when you have the difference between you and your sibling, the character should be able to tell what is the difference between active voice and passive voice. Very important question, the relevance. Why do we have to study about active voice and passive voice? Why do we have to study about passive voice? The hunter shot the tiger. Is a sentence enough, clear to us? Why do we have to study the passive voice sentence, right? So here, again, if the child is not able to answer, the teacher will intervene, right? Maybe at that moment, if you do not want to, you are making your own notes and you will answer this question a little later. Then what is the syntax that you usually follow? You as in the passive voice sentence. So the object, then the verb in the passive voice form, then by and the subject. Do you change the tense of the verb when you are framed from active voice sentence? So no, I do not. I only change my form, is what the student has to answer. So again, a student who knows the rules very well, that child will be asked to be on the hot seat, right? Now, again, you may feel that, okay, hot seat, only one student answering, the others are merely questioning. No, we have a variation for it. So we can have a character conclave, where a conference style dialogue is happening. Many students become the characters from the story. So if I take again Merchant of Venice, the characters are Antonio, Shylock, Bassanio, Portia, and the theme that the teacher has given is rights, right? So students might want to ask the characters various questions like Shylock. Do you believe that all humans should have the right to practice their own religion? Remember, Shylock has been ridiculed for his religion. Shylock Okay, I'll come to the next question. So that is the question that the child asks. Shylock would obviously say, yes, yes, everyone has to have the right to practice their own religion. So Antonio, towards the end, you forgave Shylock only on the condition that he become a Christian. What is your take on that? Right? It's directly connected to the first question. That if Shylock says that every person should have the right to practice their own religion, Antonio is an adult. That what do you want to say? You forgave him towards the end only on the condition that he become a Christian, right? Then you can talk about the rights of women. So Portia, when she goes to the court, she dresses up as a male. So you would want the Portia to comment on the rights of women with regards to her act of dressing up as a male to fight the case in the courtroom. You can ask Bassanio a question: why did you, in the first place, take Portia's money? Is it correct to take the wife's money to save your friend? Right? So all these are again not the questions that probably would be required to answer a question, but yes, higher order thinking skills that are developed here. right? And instead of just one character on the stage, we have 3 to 4. For active voice and passive voice, we can make both active voice and passive voice sit on the stage and students just throw the questions at them. So that is the character conclave or hot seat variation character conclave. All right, too much of teacher talk again, and that's not what we want. Our topic is not monologue but dialogue. So can we just have a quick recap of what we have done so far? And I'm not going to do it right now. You are going to tell me in the comments what have we done so far. Oh, no comments? Okay, gallery walk. Okay. Fishbowl, yes. Hot seat, yes. Meeting clock, yes. Hot seat, hot seat, hot seat. That was the last one that we did. So everyone remembers hot seat. Sociogram, okay. Sociogram, okay. Meeting clock. Question commander, yes. Oh, somebody has taken the efforts to write everything. Very attentive, I must say. All right. So yes, what we did was, yes, how to design a collaborative classroom. We're looking at the strategies, but what strategies have we looked at is what my question. So I'll just have a quick recap. We have formed groups and we have learned techniques to form groups. One was meeting clock and one was sociogram. And then we also looked at a few strategies that can be used as a collaborative task in the classroom. One was gallery walk. This is in the order of what we discussed: gallery walk, question commander, fishbowl strategy, and hot seat or character conclave. Right? Taking you to the learning objectives. What are the learning objectives? How many have we dealt with so far? You can just tell me the numbers or anything. How many have we dealt with so far? None? Oh, no responses for this? Have we seen a few strategies that we can implement to promote collaborative learning? All? First three. Okay. Actually, all. Yes, when we were discussing, we did encounter the challenges and we did find out the solutions, but not really. We have looked at implementing strategies. We have looked at how those strategies would create student-centric, communication-rich interactions. And probably there is a little change in our mindset that yes, if the strategy I can use in the classroom. So there is a shift from teacher-led explanation to student-driven discussion. But we have to dwell on the challenges. I know this looks good on paper, but we have to look at the challenges and we have to identify solutions. All right. We are not going to deal with that right now. I have a few more strategies, right? Personal response journal, right? Basically a book where students note down their personal things related to the text, basically, but we'll come to it, right? Personal response journal, quite a colorful one. Again, the steps. Step one, teacher asks the students to maintain a journal, especially during the teaching of long readers. Especially does not mean that it is only during the teaching of long reader. You can have it during your short stories also. While reading aloud, the teacher stops at a strategic moment in the story, novel, or play. And then the teacher will ask the students to write in their journals their thoughts by posing certain thought-provoking questions. What do you think will happen after this? Right? Why do you think the character behaved in this manner? We don't know yet. We don't know. Right? If you have certain stories which are the mystery stories, right? You would want to ask, who do you think is the culprit at this moment of time? Right? We have not read the entire story. So who do you think? Right? So teacher asks the students to write that in their journal. Now, there would be some students who would have already read it and they would want to shout out the answers. Therefore, no, only write the answers. And teacher can go around and check. And once you find out that these students have read, you will generally not want to give them an opportunity to speak in the class at that moment of time, at least. Right? So this could be also used for developing the writing skills, right? So you are asking the students one question related to that particular day, right? So if it is Tuesday, 2nd November, this is 2022 diary. So you will have asked them what is that one thing that made you happy today? And they're just writing 2 to 3 lines. Remember, comprehending, listening, writing, everything is taking place here, right? And in literature, again, you can have a question. In literature, we can do this. At that moment, stop, ask, what is that? What is happening? What is going to happen? What do you think will happen after this? Right? That, or when you're doing the long reader, right? It is not possible to do it at one stretch. It would be quite boring for the students also. It has its pros and cons, of course, but then we are also interspersing it with short story or with grammar. So what we do is we send certain thought-provoking questions in the Google Classroom probably or WhatsApp in whatever way that we can. Right. So as a result, even if we have stopped at one point of time in that novel or in that long reader, and we are continuing with a grammar lesson or we are continuing with a poem, the students, because they have the homework, they are constantly thinking about the long reader also. So they don't come like a clean slate when you start the long reader again, right? From where you have stopped. And if you look at the instruction, there are 5 questions on the slide here on the right hand side. But if you look at the instruction clearly states attempt any 2 questions out of the given 5. So we are not going to overwhelm the children with, oh my God, I have to do so many things. I have to write about all these 5. I have to write all these 5, answer all these 5 questions. No, any 2. That would at least motivate them to do some task, right? And this is what we have received. So if you look at both the slides, the posters, the pictures, experience tells us that the left picture is probably of a student who has learning disability. The writing, the way the things are written, the spacing of the letters. As teachers, we have experienced this, right? And then you have the student who has uploaded the answer. What is commendable is that the student with learning disability has given the answer, has, even after coaxing, doesn't matter, right? But has taken the efforts. And if you look at the answers, the student on the left has answered question 2 and question 3. The student on the right, Prachi, has answered question 3 and 4. If you look at the answers, especially the third one in the left picture, it would be the safest. The question is Higgins a man with noble intention, or could Higgins be called an anti-hero? Right? Look at the way the child has answered. It would be safest to describe Higgins with the archetype of the anti-hero. He does not have the most heroic or noble of stature. It should be noble stature and traits, but he is one whom the story follows. We clearly are aware that this is not his thinking. But in the personal response journal, we do not want to discourage the children, and therefore what we need to applaud this child for is that even if he has used ChatGPT, remember this is now an integral part of their life, if not ours also, but their life definitely. And any task that you give, writing task that you give, it is all going to be from ChatGPT. So, but we should applaud the child that he has taken efforts, and we should understand that this child has had uh, some insight into whether he has understood, not understood. He has still taken efforts and he's still learning something, right? While writing something is he's comprehending. Probably he must have done it with the help of the tuition teacher and they both have written this, but some learning is happening here, even if it is copying, even if it is finding out the answer. Please do not discourage children even if they give certain things like this. right? So that was personal response journey. The next strategy is grammar doctor, right? Probably everyone is aware of what a grammar doctor would be, right? Step one, teacher appoints some students as doctors and some students as patients, right? Step two, teacher provides the patients with the reports. Now, what are the reports? The cards with erroneous sentences, which these patients have to carry to the doctor. What will the doctors do? The doctors go through the report and prescribe medicines. So, what is prescribing the medicine is correct their sentences and tell them that, listen, this is where the sentence goes wrong, or this is the rule, and therefore you have the incorrect sentence over here. Right? Teacher will keep on repeating the process with patients as doctors and vice versa. So it's not that all the children are going to only correct and some children will simply go and keep giving the cards to other children. No, right? The roles will be reversed. And at the end of the activity, the teacher provides the students with correct answers. Right? So an example, these were some of the sentences that were given to the children. Right? Eiffel Tower is one of the most famous landmark in the world. So the doctor corrected it to the most famous landmarks in the world, right? And this is how it went on in the class. So the doctor circled it and the child wrote. So it might be a group of 5, all right? And there would be 5 different doctors. So each doctor identified the problem or diagnosed identified the problem in the report or diagnosed it, and each patient wrote the correct answer, right? So that is how grammar doctor would go about. Right? At the end of it, teacher displayed the correct answers, right? So the doctors and the patients, they check, and where do you think this kind of an activity can be done of grammar doctor, where you have this and then the teacher just displaying? Where do you think this kind of an activity, at which stage of teaching learning can this happen? Is it at the beginning as a set induction? Is it during the teaching evaluation? Yes, I will take you through the steps once again. Okay, recap. Okay, recapitulation. Yes. Yes. Yes, correct. So we are almost recapitulating. So when you are done with the discussion of that particular topic and when you solve your exercises, one way to formative assessment, yes, can be done. Right? Previous knowledge, very, very good. Previous knowledge can, yes, this can be done as a part of a previous knowledge for the teacher to gauge the kind of class that she has and whether they have really understood that in the earlier grade that they have done. So somebody wanted the steps to grammar doctor. Here is a quick recap. Teacher appoint doctor and students. Then teacher provides with wrong answers, wrong sentences. The patients take them to the doctor marks, the patient writes down the correct sentence, and the process is repeated. The rules are reversed. All right. Next is the exit ticket. Right? Yeah. Next is the exit ticket. Exit ticket can be done in every class of ours. Right? So what is an exit ticket? It is a short reflection on the topic at the end of the class, right? Whatever topics, whatever things we have touched upon in that particular class, right? Before leaving the classroom, after even your evaluation, before leaving the classroom, you ask the students to stop, reflect on what has happened, and write in their journal. This could be included in the PRJ also, the personal response journal. One part could be the personal response journal, and the other part of the journal could be the exit ticket. What could they write? One new word I used today, right? Or something like one doubt I still have about the poem, right? So what will happen is, especially with the second one, when they start the next class, they are prepared with, okay, this was the doubt that I had about the poem and I need to ask the teacher, or they will be more attentive that has teacher clarified this doubt in the earlier class? Is she speaking about the same? So this is something that we can do in almost all the subjects in, thank you, in all the subjects in every class. All right. A quick recap again. I am not going to ask you this again. We have discussed meeting clock, sociogram, two interesting ways to form groups. Then we've discussed the strategies: gallery walk, West Commander, fishbowl strategy, and hot seat or hot seat conclave. After that, what did we do? Grammar doctor, PRJ, yes. Personal response general, yes. Journal, yes. Anything else that we did? Grammar doctor. The last one, exit ticket. Yes, absolutely. Right. So if, in a nutshell, this is what we have done for this particular session today. We have understood ways to form groups, and these are the strategies, 7 strategies that we have discussed for our collaborative classroom, right? To transform our language classroom interactions from monologue to dialogue. What are the merits of collaborative classroom? Come on, again, let's have some interaction. I've spoken enough. How would we benefit? We've discussed this earlier also. We've discussed it while we were uh, looking at each strategy. No merits? Student engagement, yes. If you go back to what we discussed is what are we looking at when we want students will be more interested to learn? Yes. Think for themselves, correct. Ensures learning at same degree for all students. Okay. Larger perspective over an idea or topic, correct, definitely. Self-learning. Confident involvement of students. Absolutely. So something that we discussed earlier. Does somebody want to speak? I think you're okay.
मूंग दाल दिला आधा किलो
Um,
Mr. Devdas Bhatke, could you please switch off your audio? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, so the merits of collaborative classroom, it breaks the monotony of the class we discussed. Once you take them to the hall or to the corridor, it gives them a fresh whiff of air that is required. Fosters higher comprehension, better retention, increased confidence in speaking and writing because they're constantly doing that, right? Holds every student accountable in taking responsibility for sharing his or her thoughts, right? That's very important. Otherwise, the accountability is only with the teacher. The students generally comment, "Oh, teacher did not teach us." No, we are not teaching, right? So you are responsible. You are accountable for the ideas, the thoughts that you are constructing together with everyone in the classroom. Promotes leadership within the group and can be implemented at every stage of teaching learning process, right? These strategies, if you look at, that's what I asked you, latest question was, where can you use the strategy? So it can be implemented at every stage of teaching learning process. In fact, someone said it could be as a pre-knowledge activity, all right, to check whether the students know about the topic that we are going to start with. Sorry, the teacher's role, right? We have discussed that the teacher is a facilitator, yes, but what exactly does a teacher have to do when he or she prepares for a collaborative task, a collaborative activity? I would like to hear from you. What exactly? Don't give me facilitator. That's a very broad term. What exactly are we doing as teachers when we are planning these collaborative activities, or when we are conducting these? Yes, planning. Yes, definitely. We need to plan. Prepare the entire lesson in detail. Yes, so that's planning. Observe. Yes, right. Definitely inclusion. Very important point. Yes, coordinate with students, probably with other teachers, probably. So execution should be done effectively. What? How exactly would we do that? Provide step-by-step instructions. Correct. Very good. Intervene when required. Yes. Yes, correct. Check that everyone participates. Absolutely. Right. So a teacher's role is not merely only planning or only execution. Teacher's role spreads across in these three categories. So before the collaborative task, right? What is the teacher's role? The teacher has to be a designer. Teacher has to plan that activity well. And teacher has to be a differentiator. Somebody said include everyone, right? So when you're planning an activity and you have half of the class that is not able to answer, is not able to articulate or express well, you will probably have to tweak that activity so that your class participates well. So you have to be the differentiator here, right? During the class, the teacher is a facilitator, yes. She is a strategist, right? She needs to understand that, okay, this much time is to be given for this particular part of the activity. Then we require it for this much time for the next part of the activity. Constantly, she has to strategize. If the children are not able to come up with the kind of responses that are expected, she needs to modify, she needs to provide scaffolding. So constantly, she has to strategize during the class, right? She has to be a model. Now, somebody said over here that we need to provide proper instructions, right? And if you look at the question commander also needs to provide proper instructions as in who can speak, who could not speak, right? So we have to be model. While we are doing our activities, we also have to give proper instructions so that the question commander will be able to give proper instruction. That's just one example, right? And assessor. You are assessing at that moment of time who is able to speak, who is able to read, who is able to listen, who is able to write well, who is able to express, right? And after the activity is done, very importantly, the teacher needs to provide the feedback to the child, right? That some students were very good at writing, but when they heard them speaking, they were not able to express well, right? And she needs to be a reflective practitioner. What do you mean by reflective practitioner? This can be taken in two ways. One is whether that task has gone well in the classroom or not, right? Did that particular task go well? If not, where did it go wrong? How can I modify that task? So that the next time you take up this task, you know that this is the glitch in the task that happened last time and I need to change it. And she also needs to reflect on the observations she has made about the students. Right? Yes, of course, exit ticket will help her to understand, but exit ticket is more about the students thinking rather than the teacher, right? She needs to reflect on the observations she has recorded for each child in her book, right? Because there are some students who are quite independent, they can do the task on their own. There are some students who have to be nudged, they have to be brought back, they're not very able to be in that entire discussion. Some students need a lot of scaffolding, some students need a lot of support. This is what the teacher has to do. And if you look at this, the major task of a teacher is during the activity. So during the activity, the teacher has to equip herself with certain tools, right? If she has to observe the students, if she has to be an assessor and she has to tell the child, she has to give the feedback how the listening skills of the students were, or how well the child was able to speak, how well the child was able to read, how well the child was able to write. She needs to have a proper rubric. And she needs to share this rubric with the students also, so that they understand what is the expectation of the teacher to help them be under the proficient category or exceeds expectations category. So if you look at this rubric, listening skill rubric, what are we going to assess students on their attentiveness, right? So while you were giving instructions, were they frequently distracted? Were they actively listening? Even when the activity was going on and somebody, the group leader was speaking, were they attentive, right? Were they able to sustain their focus, right? Nowadays, the focus of the students has gone for a toss, right? They have the reels are for 15 seconds, so is their focus, right? Responding to peers. So when the peer, the leader in the group for that particular activity, when they have given certain instructions or they have asked them to respond, are they responding? All right. Unclear responses, relevant responses to peers, that would be a proficient student and builds on peers' ideas, paraphrases the ideas. Right? That would be another category of exceeds expectations. And then listening for details, right? Not just hearing again, listening. So the child misses out on the central idea. So that child requires an extra support, right? A proficient child will definitely understand the main idea. And the student who goes beyond our expectation identifies the detail and the implied meaning and conducts the activity accordingly, right? Next, we have the speaking skills, right? So clarity and confidence. So the indicators are clarity and confidence, contribution, use of structures, and turn taking. Right? So clarity and confidence. Does the child speak with clarity? Is the child confident? Right? Is the child fluent enough? Next, contribution. So in a group activity, again, as we discussed, we generally find some students who will constantly hijack the conversation, right? And some students who are passive. So we need to look at how many of them contribute, how many of them contribute only when they're nudged, they are prompted, right? How many of them are consistent and contribute all relevant responses, right? And as we saw in that video for the question commander, is the child able to lead and encourage the discussion? Then use of structures, right? Frequent errors in the way they have spoken, or some correct structures that they have spoken, but majority of them are wrong. Proficient student will be probably able to have more accurate structures, and the child who exceeds expectations would have varied structures as in the different ways in which he would write, he would want to speak, right? Very articulate. Turn taking, that's again something very, very important. Whether the child is speaking out of turn, whether the child has too many ideas and does not want to be interrupted, he or she continuously goes on talking, right? So either interrupts, or the other side of the spectrum is that no ideas, no contribution at all right, and completely silent, right? And the exceed expectation would be models respect, encourages others. So models respect is the child will wait for his or her own turn, even if that means that the student in his or her own group is not able to articulate well, right? The child will not be impatient. He will still allow the child to speak whatever his thoughts are, and then will take over when it is his or her own turn. Next, we have reading skills. So again, LSRW all taken into consideration, right? And we need to have these rubrics ready with us when we are conducting the collaborative activity. So in the reading skill, whether the child is able to comprehend well, whether the child has given textual evidences properly, right? So cannot locate the points. Remember when we were doing comprehension, the child is not able to locate any points, right? On the other hand, we have children who probably were able to select the key ideas, and the best one probably had collated all the ideas, written it well, elaborated them well, right? Which the proficient learner was not able to do, right? Then application and discussion. So while discussing whether the child is using the text, right, validating his discussion, his points with the reference to the text, right, often uses text and integrates text seamlessly, right. Then writing. Some tasks you would want them to write also, right? Write their points, write a paragraph. So organization. So whether the child has disorganized ideas, whether the child has logical organization, or he might not have an attempted structure at all. Sorry, no structure at all, or he may attempt structure and coherent with transition. So your first paragraph and second paragraph probably are well linked. It's not uh, disjointed, right? Accuracy, frequent errors for student who needs support, right? A proficient one is mostly accurate. A developing one has a lot of errors, but there are some accurate sentences, highly accurate and varied responses or sentences. Relevance of task or incomplete, right? A child who is not given the task, he's not understood the task and therefore completely off task or an incomplete task, partially relevant, fully relevant, insightful and detailed. Collaborative input, right? So remember, this is a collaborative task. So collaborative input, the parameters for need support is does not group ideas at all, right? Limited use, meaningful incorporation, and creative synthesis, right? And remember, since we were doing collaborative activity, so apart from this LSRW, we are also going to look at the collaborative skills. So whether the child is dominating the discussion, as happened in that video, or the child is completely withdrawn and does not participate, right? Or the child participates on and off. A proficient one would participate fairly in majority of the discussion, right? And an exceeds expectation child would definitely ensure equal participation for all the students. Then responsibility, right? An exceeds expectation child would initiate taking responsibility. He would support others, right? Whereas a developing the child who falls in the developing characteristic would have to be given reminders. All right, you are responsible for this particular part. Please complete it, right? And the student who needs support depends on others to complete the task. Problem solving, right? Avoids negotiation, attempts with help, negotiates respectfully, and resolves all the issues effectively. And reflection cannot reflect on what the task is, what the content is. Basic reflection, meaningful reflection, and deep constructive insight. So these are the things that the teacher has to equip herself with while she is planning, and she has to carry these rubrics in the classroom, and she has to constantly make an attempt. Now, as I said earlier, that sometime you would want to assess the students only on listening skill, right? Even if the activity involves all four skills, it is not possible for us to have assessment of all four or five collaborative, inclusive, all four and five skills together for every child, right? So she may want to divide it, he or she may want to divide it by using this rubrics. And let's say today I'm going to look at only the speaking skills of all the 40 students, or today I'm going to assess these 10 students majorly. I'm going to make a note of the other 30 students, but these 10 students on all the skills, I'm going to assess them. So that is something that the teacher can do at her own level. But this is something that the teacher needs to have. Now, it may seem very overwhelming. Oh my God, four rubrics and all these things in the classroom. Once we start practicing these collaborative strategies in the classroom, we'll realize that we don't even require the rubric. You know, we are just taking observation based on these rubrics that fit in our mind. That yes, I know that this child has these skills. He can do this. He can do this well, right? Towards the end, the teacher's reflection notes, right? When the teacher is an assessor, we already said that these rubrics will be shared with the students. So when the teacher is an assessor, she is going.
Are you done speaking? क्या है रे बाबा?
Yeah, speaking.
Done speaking.
Yeah. Okay. So when you are assessing a student and when you have given the student the rubric, right? When you have made the student aware of what they will be assessed on, For each student, you can write their strengths observed, you can write their areas of improvement, and you can also think of the support or the scaffolds that you need to provide to particularly weaker students who needs improvement. You have observed that the child needs improvement in almost all the skills, so there has to be some remediation, there is some special support or scaffolding that has to be provided to that particular child. The teacher reflection notes on the same parameters could also be for the activity. So what were the strengths of the activity? What are the areas of improvement? And what are the special support or scaffolds that are required to make this activity work in the classroom in a better way the next time? All right. So this can be used for both. When we talk of the support or the scaffold provided, it is not possible every time for the teacher to have the child in the class, separately deal with him. So what we can do is make the best use of technology. We have so many websites which help us to collaborate and interact with the students. So this is a kind of a Padlet that we have developed, right? You can see it's grade 9 and astrologer's day from the earlier textbook, grade 9 and astrologer's day. And we find that the students probably who are weaker, this has been done by the entire class. This is the 2020 Padlet, so the pandemic time. But students who are weak, they can actually be sent the scaffolding material, the support material in the Google Classroom, right? And all their responses are collated on this Padlet. So the teacher is constantly helping the students to come to the level of the other students who are proficient in listening, speaking, right, writing. Writing is something that comes towards the end. However, we want our children to raise their own bar. They have to compete with their own self and not with any other. Okay. So we can make use of technology. We do not limit ourselves to, all right, after school you wait. The child will tell you, no, after school I have my I have my classes, I cannot wait. So we can make use of the technology. So you provide them with some questions, and all of them can on the Padlet give you the answers. In the Google Classroom, they can give you the answers. Now, if you look at this Padlet, you will find that there are some students who have given it in the drive. Accept. All right. Sometimes we become very rigid. No, you have to write it over here. How will I go to the drive and check? No, accept. Some students have uploaded their own writing. Accept. Right. For starters, I know it is not related to LSRW, but for starters, if you know that a child is weak in all these skills, but he's a very good artist, tell him or her to draw. You can see here, to draw whatever he has understood. Right. At least that would motivate him to then speak about it, right? Then probably write about it, then probably more so read earlier, then speak, and then write about it. But do not discourage the students by saying, no, we want it in this set of format, especially when you're doing activities like these, like the Padlet, like the online collaboration, and for the weaker students. Our purpose is to boost their morale and not to discourage them further. Right? Now comes the challenges. So what are the challenges that you can think of that can be encountered while you are conducting this collaborative classroom strategies? Waiting for you to respond. No challenges? We're all set, ready to go take these tasks in the classroom, try out. Obviously, there will be challenges. Yes. Time and space constraints. Space constraints, though we discussed that we can take them. Time, yes. Yes, large number of students. That's something that we need to look at. So as we discussed, that everybody need not participate in every activity. I did not get this. Parents feel their child is not engaged in. So when you have a large group, I may just answer that particular question. When you have a large group, you need not involve everyone in every activity. Anymore? Discipline should be maintained, yes. Individual differences, yes, we discussed this, that a teacher need to be a differentiator. So that is where the teacher has to plan. Any more? All right. I think it's 8:43. So yes, people would want to wind this up quickly. So I'll take you through the challenges. Lack of clear goals. But again, that should not be a challenge if you are a well-prepared teacher, and that is non-negotiable in conducting the collaborative skills, right? Large size class, yes, people said large size class. Time constraints. I'm surprised. Oh, thank you, Ms. Sarita, for bringing that up. Curriculum pressure, right? Definitely, I'm surprised nobody spoke of it earlier. So curriculum pressure. Then we have the fear of, I'm sorry, yes, fear of noise. That also somebody spoke about right now. Lack of discipline. Students are too shy to speak, so we are probing and probing and probing, and none of the students are participating in the class activity, and it falls flat, right? Language proficiency differences, right? So you had the individual differences there. Solutions. So if these are the common challenges, what could be the solutions for the same? Again, I'm not going to provide. We are all going to discuss. I'm just going to sum up. I'm going to be a facilitator right now. Students will be interested when we do something with them, when we ask them to perform certain tasks. They are mostly disinterested because it's a teacher talk that is happening. So let us look at large size class. What could be the practical solution, right? Need not involve all students in all the tasks, right? We are still maintaining the rubric, we are still maintaining our observation book, but as we discussed earlier also, that in the next class, when have done fishbowl and I have taken only 11 children out of that entire packed class, the next task, I will ensure that these 11 children are not in the limelight. The others are speaking more. The others are doing the activity more, right? Time constraints and curriculum pressure. Any solutions for the same? Solution is what we are doing. Collaboration, right? Correlation with the other subjects. So we collaborate with a math teacher or a science teacher generally, where we have certain things with history teacher, probably when we are dealing with Julius Caesar, or when we are dealing with the Merchant of Venice, right? Civics teacher when we are talking about the rights. So we correlate with them. Uh, yeah, we correlate with the other subjects, right? We also micro plan, right? So the time constraint, if we have micro planned, our every minute of our class is taken into account, right? And for curriculum pressure, of course, one chapter that can be done in, that is to be done in two different subjects, right? That can be combined. So both the subject teachers are relieved of doing that chapter separately, right? Fear of noise and lack of discipline, right? Again, the answer would be micro planning. If you have accounted for every minute in the classroom, there's no way that the students are distracted and the students are doing something else, right? Every minute has some or the other task to be performed, right? And yes, the classrooms are going to be noisy. They are not going to be pin drop silence classroom. But here, the noise of learning is a rhythm of shared growth. So this noise we would want to have in the classroom. A little noise of learning we would want to have in the classroom. Right? Students are too shy to speak. Right? Miss Dhanalakshmi, Miss Dhanalakshmi, your mic is on, please. Yeah. Next we have yes, rewards and marks for best disciplined group. Marks, I'm not very sure of. Yes, but the students understand the language of marks. But rewards, yes, definitely. Students who are shy to speak or language proficiency differences with NEP, we are encouraging multilingual scaffolding. So, for the starters, when students are too scared to speak in English, we might want to provide them an opportunity to speak in whatever the language they are comfortable with. Of course, we need to understand that language, but whatever language they are comfortable with, at least Hindi we can all understand and give and take can happen, right? But only for starters. Slowly and gradually, you will want to push them, nudge them to now, okay, this has what you want to say is very clear to me in Hindi, but now I want you to speak the same in English, right? So that could be done for students who are shy to speak or students who are not very proficient in the language. And one last bit of exercise for you. Any particular strategy that we have, the strategies that we have seen, any one of the strategies, where will you implement them? And at what stage of teaching learning experience will you use this strategy? Just in a word or two. I'm not expecting an elaborate answer. Just to jog our memory, we have done exit ticket, we have done personal response journal, we have done hot seat and hot seat conclave, we have done a gallery walk, we have done fishbowl. Any strategy? Fishbowl for debate or discussions, yes. That's it. Oh, very good. Hot seat to recap the topic taught, yes. Exit ticket to recap the grammar lesson. Just two more and then we will move to the next part. Anything else? All right. So grammar doctor for grammar recap and formative assessment, and yes. The personal response journal. Doctor's journal. Yes, multiple assessment. Yes, yes. All right. Thank you so much for your valuable contribution here because I wanted to check whether we are on the same page. And remember, we need to use these uh, strategies in the class because a true strength in our classroom lies in the collaboration of learners and not the knowledge of one expert. So we want the students to collaborate and not just the teacher to speak as a knowledge expert. So that was all from my end. Anybody who wants to me to take you through any slide, if you want me to show you any of the processes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. That's all from my end.
Any questions teachers
Yeah,
have, or if you want Miss Reena to take you through any of the slides, feel free. We still have 5 minutes with us. If there are no queries, then we could perhaps end the day's proceedings.
don't think there are any questions coming our
Yeah,
way.
but I'm just taking a cue from all the appreciation that is coming in, and I will use those very words. Oh, there's somebody who wants you to again explain meeting clock and sociogram. That is, I
Yes.
think, how to form a group. Okay,
Yes.
if you could do that, yeah.
Yeah. So meeting clock is where you ask the students to create a circle, basically a clock with 12, 3, 6, and 9. Even if they do not create, they just write 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. And as a teacher, you will ask them to move about, right? You'll ask them to do two things. If you were paired with a person, right, and I ask you to schedule a meeting with at 3 o'clock, who would you have the meeting with? Only one person. So the child goes hunts for hunts for the student, right? Preferably a friend, and then for all the four. Also, because we would have activities wherein we would require 4 students or 5 students, accordingly, we will give the instructions that the meeting clock for 3 o'clock, the child has to schedule meeting with 3 other people or 4 other people. And when you want to do the activity, you may just walk into the classroom and say, today, all the 9 o'clock meetings will take place. So the students have that in their books and they know the 9 o'clock meeting is scheduled with Tanay, Jia, Sunena, and Ria, right? And all these will come together and they will perform the task or they will discuss the question, right? And taking it a notch further is the teacher who would create a group based on her observation of the class dynamic, who gets along well with one another, right? Who does not get along well with one another, who are more comfortable with one another to do a particular strategy, right? That is what a sociogram is all about. So in our book, instead of writing for every child that this child gets along with this, if we have the names and if we only keep on pointing the arrows, a two-way arrow or a one-way arrow or no arrow at all, that will give us the class dynamics of how the students gel along with one another or they do not gel along with one another. Yes. That was all about sociogram and meeting clock.
So that question was from Miss Lena, and she's thanked you a ton for taking her through it again. So a meeting clock should be taken during school hours only, is what Miss Sarita says.
Ma'am, I think you have confused. Meeting clock is just not a meeting actually. Yeah, actually scheduled at 3 o'clock. We are only asking, this is just a novel way of grouping the students together. It's not going to be scheduled at 3 o'clock. It is not going to be scheduled at 6 o'clock. It's only 6 o'clock meeting participants will come together for this activity that we are performing in the classroom. That is what meeting clock is all about. Yeah, welcome.
I think it's time to thank you, Miss Reena, for a very immersive and wonderful and insightful and thought-provoking. And I'm just reading out all the adjectives that came into the in the chat box. So, and some of them have promised to take these strategies forward into their classrooms. I know an onerous task for the teachers,
Yes.
but then I think the entire engagement with the students will reach a different level, and you will surely succeed in your task of achieving the LSRW skills that you
Absolutely.
are actually intending to for the language development of the students. So on that note, once again, thank you all the participants. Thanks USF and Mr. Kedia for all these wonderful sessions that our teachers are privy to. And hopefully we'll continue in this manner, and many more wonderful sessions are in store for us in the future. Thank you once again, participants. Thank you, Ms. Reena. Wish
Thank
you
you,
all
ma'am.
a wonderful week end, and have a great time. And on Monday, perhaps you could just start using some of these strategies in your classrooms. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.